I'm back. I'm back in the barn in Rhode Island. It is summertime. It's officially summertime, my favorite season. Summertime for me means swimming, being barefoot, swimming, making pottery, swimming, watercolor painting, swimming. I actually didn't know how to swim for my entire childhood. My parents didn't know how to swim. We didn't take swimming lessons, my sisters and I. And as an adult, I didn't know how to swim. But then something happened, which is what I wanted to talk to you about. Actually, something happened, and that's how this was born. This is my book, which I wrote 10 years ago. So I wrote this 10 years ago. It was published almost 10 years ago. It was published in 2016. And writing this book was one of the most significant moments in my life. Not just because of the act of seeing a book that you wrote on the bookshelves at Barnes & Noble in the US and at Indigo in Canada, but because this book coming out was me sharing a story that was so personal that I always thought I would just keep to myself and use as motivation. And then when this happened, I realized, oh, this is a story that maybe can inspire and help anyone that reads this book. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Writing my memoir. I'm not going to go through what happened here because there's actually a great video that's a TED Talk that I gave, and it is the summary of this book, this journey. I will put a link to that TED Talk in the video. My book came out in 2016, and it actually was born out of a speech that I was giving. The TED Talk is that speech that I started giving at colleges. So on the set of Mean Girls, I was so happy to be in that movie, and I was so excited about continuing my career in film. And I discovered that Life of Pi was going to be made into a movie. I actually read Life of Pi on the set of Mean Girls and was just really taken by the story. Someone on the set, actually, the camera guy, he was like, have you read Life of Pi? Because you really remind me of that character. So that comment prompted me to get the book and read the book. And I loved the book, and then found out it was going to be made into a movie. And I sort of set an internal goal that I'm going to get this part. I'm going to get this part. I'm going to work really, really hard, and I'm just going to make it happen. And it didn't happen. It took 7 years. Like, it was a journey that was supposed to be just 1 year. They were supposed to make the movie within 1 year, and then it kept being delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and it was unforeseen how long it actually took for them to make that film. But at the end of 7 years, and I had worked so hard to get this part and put all my resources, time, money, energy, and I found out that the director gave the part to an unknown, well, he wasn't an actor, he was a schoolboy in India, and I was devastated. But something came out of that journey, a real formative experience. And from that failure, what I looked at as failure at the time, I learned about the value of just jumping in and going on an adventure. So this book is the story of my adventure. I grew up in the suburbs, in a suburb called Scarborough, outside of Toronto. And my childhood was quiet. I mean, aside from the chaos that went on at home with domestic squabble between my parents, I always imagined something more for myself. That suburban life just never felt like enough for me. And it was in books and in movies that I felt like I I could live. And that's what I sort of aspired to. When I would read stories like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, it was so wild and crazy, and he runs away, and he's bad, and he's naughty, and mischievous. But that's what I that's what I wanted. I wanted that sense of adventure. So I would pretend. My friends, my family, my cousins, when we were together, we would pretend, and in those make-believe worlds, it felt like adventure was happening. But as I grew up and entered university, that sense of adventure was still not really fulfilled. So when I read Life of Pi, and I read Life of Pi, as I said, when I was on the set of Mean Girls, and I was in my first year of university, I had this opportunity to kind of go on an adventure and to just dive right in. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I dropped out of school and I went to the little town in India where Life of Pi takes place. I had never heard of this French part of India before reading Life of Pi, Pondicherry, but I looked it up and it existed. It was a real place. The boys' school that Pi attends in the book, I looked that up too. That was a real place, Petit Seminaire, that was started by priests, Jesuit priests, I think in the 18th century. The school still existed. So I found the email address of the principal of the school, and I sent an email and asked, hey, I would like to come over. I didn't say hey. I asked if I could attend the school for 2 weeks and sit in the back of the classrooms and just observe the atmosphere, see what the kids were like. I wanted to emulate the essence of those boys that went to that school when the time came for an audition. And the principal said, sure, come. So all of that is chronicled in here. I'm going to read you one little part of when I arrived in India. Should have bookmarked this. So the principal's name was Father Anthony Sami, and it just made me laugh because it's kind of an oxymoron. He was a Tamil man that was Catholic. He wore a long white cassock, like a beautifully starched, pristine cassock during the day. Anthony is a European name. Sami is a Tamil word, and Sami in Tamil means God. But I thought it was kind of funny because Sami in Tamil references Hindu gods. So here we have this Catholic Tamil priest whose name is Father Anthony Sami. And I felt like that really just summed up India in a beautiful way. In the unstructured chaos of India, some kind of order existed. And that was part of what I discovered from going there and just being there. So Father Anthony Sami, on I think my second or third day there, he had one of his peons pull me out of the classroom and take me to his office, and I thought that I was in trouble for something. And he asked me to sit down, and then he asked me if I would like to join him for dinner that evening, and I said absolutely. So we had arranged a time to meet in the evening in the school when all the kids had gone home, and then we were going to go to dinner from there. The vestibule outside Father Anthony Sami's office was quiet and empty as I waited for him later that evening. He told me to meet him at 8, and I was a little early. I was curiously poking around the 200-year-old building when the deafening caws of crows drew me to the open courtyard. There were hundreds of crows in the huge trees that anchored the corners of the tropical garden. Darkness hid the details, but everything was softly lit with a blue hue from the moon, nearly full in the indigo sky above. I have entered the book, I thought. Just a few months ago, Life of Pi was 1.5 inches of pages that I could hold in one hand, and now I was standing in the middle of a setting that I could see, smell, and touch. I am here. Father Anthony Sami walked up quietly from behind without me noticing and explained that the crows sought refuge there because it was one of the few quiet, secluded places in the middle of town. In his long cassock, he seemed to float about like a sort of angelic being, but now he was dressed in plain clothes, and seeing him in trousers brought him down to earth, to my level. That's one of my favorite parts of the book because, I mean, this was my first book, and it was a joy to write, but it was a real challenge. There are parts of it that I read back now and think, oh, I could have said that in such a better way. You know, we always critique our own stuff, but that part of the book remains part of the book that I just really love because it takes me right back to that moment, a single moment where everything kind of falls into place. All the years before going to India and all the years afterwards, I think of what led to that moment and what came after that. And, you know, my goal was to immerse myself into this novel, this fictional novel, Life of Pi. And in that moment of being alone in that courtyard in India, I really was in the book, and it was an incredible feeling. It was such a quiet, still, solitary feeling, but it was still so impactful, and that has really stayed with me. We're inspired by adventure. Adventure is the stuff of books and movies for a reason. It's because the story that is told through adventure, often through one person, the protagonist, is a story that involves risk. It involves addressing your fears. It usually involves some kind of loss. And then, in the end, often it involves learning something. And when I didn't get this part, I really was devastated because I kind of took everything I had and put it into making this goal happen. But when I had some time to just leave everything alone, I looked back at what had happened and I was very grateful for the experience. In a way, now, if I were to look back, I think I'm kind of glad that I didn't get that part. Because what came from that failure was an understanding of how many people might want to take a risk and go on an adventure and just put themselves into something that's completely foreign and crazy, and how many of those people don't do it. You know, books like Eat, Pray, Love, or an older book that I really, really love, Out of Africa, which was turned into a film. There's a part early in that film where the main character is just longing to change everything that's boring in her life, and she says, why don't we go far away, somewhere far away like Africa or Ceylon. Movies like that, movies like The Secret Garden, where the little girl really has nothing and then just pours herself into this magical world. You know, I think I will make the assumption that many people stop for moments in their life and they think, what if I just did this? What if I left everything I know and sold everything I have, and if you have kids, took the kids with me and moved to Italy? It is possible, and people actually do it. I've met them. I've met the people that have not written memoirs or have not had their life story turned into a film. They are out there. And you know what? I have never heard any of those people say, I regretted it. Even the sailor that I befriended, who was cast away when his ship sank in the middle of the Atlantic, he was alone. And he survived by drifting on a life raft across the Atlantic for 76 days. And the life raft landed in the Caribbean. Yeah, he's now my friend, Stephen Callahan. Even Stephen does not say I regret that. He lived to tell the tale. But I wrote this book for people to read and hopefully take away a sense of looking back at their own lives and maybe seeing the things that they wanted to forget, that were painful, that were difficult, seeing the things that they might be pushing into a corner in a new light, maybe in a good light, finding ways of taking those ugly, dark, horrible things and using them to maybe change your life now and make it something different, or simply to appreciate difficulty that you endured and you tolerated and you learned from, and now you're here. Whether here is great or meh or bad. Writing my memoir gave me an understanding of what this task was actually about. So, on the surface, the goal is to tell my story. That's superficially what this is. I tell my story. But the real goal, I believe, of any memoir or story of adventure or inspiration is to tell a universal story, to tell a story that actually anyone can take something away from and use in their own life. And that was my task when I sat down to write this book. I had my story, I had my facts, I had lived through it. I had notes and notebooks and tape recordings and journal entries and emails. All that stuff is in here. But I stopped and I thought, well, what is the universal story? And I realized early on, really before I started writing, that the universal story is that we're all going to experience some kind of failure or loss or disappointment in our lives. It's just part of life. What do you do with it, though? That's what this book is about. The book is kind of dated. There's some humor in here that's very of the time, so I apologize if it offends anybody. Please forgive me. I was trying to be funny. Penguin Random House Canada published this version of the book, and thanks to viewers like you, all the copies sold out and warranted a second printing. So there are copies now available that I've signed on my website, RajivSurendra.com. If you want a hard copy, you can go there and purchase one, and shipping is included. I also personally recorded the audiobook to this book, so it's my voice narrating the book. If you prefer audiobooks, I hope you like this book if you read it. I also hope that for all of you that might have that inkling of adventure, of doing something crazy, of quitting your job and leaving everything you know and going halfway across the world, which is kind of what happened here. You can do it. It will be scary. You will probably fail at some point. You might lose everything and have no money. But at the end of all of that, it will probably be something that was fun and that was an adventure, and you will have grown from it, truly. That is what happened here. And I know that it's too scary for most people to just do that. We come up with excuses. We all always come up with excuses of why we can't do something. I do it too. But I have learned to stop coming up with excuses and to just figure out a way to make it happen. So, if you read this, and if you have that little gnawing feeling of, this is crazy, but I think I really would love to do this, do it. And even if just one of you who watches this does it, and their life changes because of it, in a good way, this will have been worthwhile. Thank you.